this is a turkey, a symbol of the US holiday called Thanksgiving. But the true story behind that holiday isn't what many people in the US are taught. If you grew up in the US, the myth that you probably learned is that English settlers and indigenous people shared a friendly harvest meal in 1621. But that version leaves out almost everything that actually happened. The story usually begins with English colonists arriving in modern-day Massachusetts. They were unprepared for the winter, so indigenous people showed them how to plant corn and other crops. Then the settlers invite their indigenous neighbors to a feast to celebrate their first harvest. But that's not the real story. The truth is, autumn harvest traditions didn't come from English settlers. It was already a part of life for many tribes, including the Wampanoag, the indigenous community that lived on that land long before the settlers arrived. At the same time the first Thanksgiving appears in US history books, English settlers were stealing land and crops and spreading deadly diseases that devastated indigenous communities. By 1621, diseases brought by Europeans had killed over 90% of native people along the United States' present-day East Coast. But even after that loss, indigenous groups managed to rebuild themselves to a point where settlers began to see their strength as a threat. By 1637, in what's now Connecticut, colonists were fighting the Pequot Nation for control of trade. That year, settlers launched a massive attack on a Pequot village, killing men, women and children and burning people alive as they tried to escape. Between 400 and 700 Pequot people were killed in about an hour. After winning the Pequot War, the Massachusetts Bay Colony Governor John Winthrop declared a day of Thanksgiving. Some historians point to this event as the first Thanksgiving, but the US wouldn't make Thanksgiving a national holiday until 1863. Now, in the centuries that followed, settlers continued to seize land, enslave indigenous people, and carry out violent campaigns of genocide, forced removal, and assimilation, often in the name of God and civilization. And that's why many indigenous people don't consider Thanksgiving a day of gratitude. Since 1970, they've observed a national day of mourning. Each year, many indigenous people gather in Plymouth, Massachusetts, the same place the English landed in 1620, to remember their ancestors and to honor the millions of indigenous people killed by colonizers over generations. So next time you think about turkey on Thanksgiving, remember the holiday's racist history and the true story indigenous communities have been keeping alive for generations.